Okay. Okay, welcome back to another session forming part of our webinar series, How Not to Drive Your Business to Zero, but actually set yourself up to thrive in the aftermath. I just wanted to introduce our host again, Daniel Watson, Director at Vertec IT Services, and our guest today, Jugdis Parbhu, Advisory Partner at BDO Auckland. Before I hand over, just a few important notes again and reminders. A recorded version of this webinar will be available on our social media after this interview. Should you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we will go through these at the end. And then you can also get a list of our upcoming interviews and the dates on our registration page and also our socials. And that's it from me, so over to Daniel.
Great stuff, thank you, Bianca. Okay, Jugdis, thank you for coming along today. I think the interest level in what you've got to say is going to be quite high. We're in interesting times, as the Chinese curse goes, and there is going to be a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth. That wailing will reach a fever pitch in the next couple of weeks as we get past that 4-week period, and people, I think, will start to realize that we are not going back to the way things were. Jugdis, the kind of standard question I've been putting to everybody, but is, what are some of the biggest mistakes a business owner could make right now, or possibly has already made in dealing with the COVID-19 crisis?
Look, I think the biggest mistake that businesses would be making right now is thinking that once we get past level 4, that thing will revert to normal. And what I mean by normal is what had happened last month or 6 months ago. It won't happen like that for a number of reasons. We know that the economy has changed dramatically. We know that the level of tourists that are coming into the country are significantly reduced, eliminated, in fact. We know that those businesses that were relying on that level of boost to the economy is no longer there. So we're in for a period of change, and it's those businesses that are that have got their head in the sand, that's thinking that change won't affect them, are the ones that will be making the biggest mistakes.
Right, and from other guests that I've had on this series, there's been an emphasis on making plans and communicating, right? So one of the reasons why I started the series was that during our BNI group session a couple of weeks back, there were a lot of business owners who are asking questions and getting advice and talking amongst each other, but perhaps what I noticed is some of the advice probably wasn't all that flash, along the lines of, should I only be paying clients, paying my staff the subsidy? Can I, and that's it? And I'm like, oh gosh, things like of that nature. Have you come across some cautionary tales along those lines?
Yeah, look, I think what I want just to touch on is about what businesses should be thinking about right now, and most people have actually addressed some of these issues because they've been in the news, and it's been relatively easy to apply. And that the first one that you mentioned is the wage subsidy. So for the wage subsidy, there were early adopters, and then as the government started releasing some funds pretty quickly, some more rules started to appear, and it's starting to show now that some of those people that might have been early adopters may well be in a little bit more of a difficult situation going forward. So there are rules around whether you can or can't apply or qualify for the wage subsidy, but one of the key things that people should be doing is, if they do qualify, is to get that wage subsidy applied for, and the funds in most cases have come out, but it's probably around about up to a 10 working day waiting period in order to get that. But aside from that, there are a number of other things that the government have announced that people should be thinking about. And one of them, obviously, is employment. And people don't realise that you just can't cut somebody's wages. You've got an employment agreement with them. It's a contractual arrangement. And whilst with any contractual arrangement, you can alter the terms of that contractual agreement, arrangement as long as both parties agree. Both parties need to have a dialogue around that. And then that, can happen. But the government also acknowledged the fact that, some people where they've got no money coming in and have applied for the wage subsidy, where do they get the funds to support the balance of the payment above the wage subsidy to their normal wage? And so there are challenges around that, and they need to explore, what some of those opportunities are to effectively cash flow that gap. So one of the things is working with your bank. Everyone knows that that's an obvious thing to do. But what the government have announced is the Business Finance Guarantee Scheme. Now, essentially what that is, it's an unsecured loan that the government takes an 80% risk on you, the business owner, paying that back, and the bank will take a 20% risk on that. So you might be a business that is, let's say, mortgaged to the hilt as such. They've got your house, they've got your business, but still, can I get this business another loan? And the answer is yes, you can, if you apply via your bank. So with the wage subsidy, the Business Finance Guarantee Scheme, there's a couple of other initiatives that the government have announced just today. There are some things where the government will support small businesses, small medium businesses to get through this, and I think that's the emphasis on their support. Their support package is around getting through this the downturn that businesses, the economy has had during this COVID-19 crisis. But aside from all that, you need to think about other matters as well. And one of the most important things you need to monitor is your cash flow. So one of the things that I've been talking to clients about, and even our BNI members, is managing your cash flow. So people sort of think, yep, I do that. I look at my bank statement. That's not managing your cash flow. Managing your cash flow is understanding, first of all, what payments I've got to make. And when I say what payments I have to make, it's essential payments that I have to make. What are they? They tend to be things around, I need to keep the power bill going because I've got refrigeration plant in my factory that I need to keep things chilled or cool. I need to keep my IT system going. I need to keep...
Absolutely.
I need to keep my wages going. I need to keep, what are those essential things that I need in order to keep my business running? Because if I don't have my businesses running, then I can't sell anything. Then I've got to look at, okay, now realistically, where am I going to get my revenue? The cash I'm talking about, not future sales, cash. So I've got people that owe me money, and I've got people that I want to sell to in the future. So what's the likelihood? I need to have a discussion, a dialogue with all my big customers, and sort of saying, well, I know times are tough and you're not getting any money in, but you owe me X amount of dollars, and when can I expect that? This is not strong-arming your customers. It's just being realistic in relation to what I think people should be doing in relation to their business activities right here, right now.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of different responses from different sectors with respect to how they're handling people who owe them money, essentially, right? So for ourselves, we've said we're going to continue to bill, but we're simply not going to chase. If you're under stress, then I'm not going to add to it. In some cases, we've reduced some people's service plans whilst keeping the essentials in place, because once we come out of it, you don't want to have to re-engineer stuff the word go, because that just adds work for everybody. But you don't want to end up being somebody's bank either, right?
Yeah,
Where
not at all.
you know, they're shifting the cost of financing their operations onto their suppliers. I mean, I don't want to treat my suppliers like that, because they're, you know, they're good people and they got people to pay as well. So it's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? Like, you know, you want to keep the money flowing.
Yep. So and that's one of the things that if you talk to economists and listen to Adrian Orr, it is about keeping the money flowing. It's not about putting a plug on it and bottling it all up. That's what this business finance guarantee scheme's about. It's about providing businesses with cash flow that allow cash to keep flowing. And yes, everyone's going to take a haircut during this recovery process. And I mean everybody. There'll be very few people that will be able to provide the level of service at the rates that they charged previously. Why is that? Because essentially everybody, instead of having 100 cents in the dollar, they might have 80 cents in the dollar or 75 cents in the dollar. No one's going to have, or very few people will have the opportunity to have a service or a product that they will be able to charge at a premium going forward, where they weren't charging a premium previously. So I'll just touch on one other thing that you mentioned, which is chasing your debtors, or giving credit, or, you know, what level of credit should you be giving. At the end of the day, we all are all part of a supply chain. So I need to basically receive money from my customers in order to pay my suppliers. We're just all individuals. We're all part of a link in a chain. And the best way to make sure that that money flows through that chain is through a dialogue and have a level of understanding. You can call it undocumented trading terms. And I know I'm not the lawyer here, but I think that, you know, businesses probably more so than ever need to have a level of understanding between each party about how each party will act in that transaction. And I'm not talking about going back to the letter of the law. I'm just talking about having a level of trust and engagement and discussion between the parties in that chain.
Yeah, it's really important to retain those relationships, because on the arse end of this thing, you don't want to be the company that people just go, you know what?
I'd rather not.
I'd rather not. You know, like going forward from here, I'd rather not deal with these guys because they treated me terribly, or they, you know, or without communication, all they did was just kept sending me through those 0 notifications, you know, for past due. And at the same time, you know, like you can improve your relationships. It's an opportunity to actually, like, well, if you've never spoken to your landlord, now's a good time to have a chinwag with them and just let them know what's going on, because they will want to be that, you know, there'll be a lot of people out there worried that, well, okay, maybe my clientele will not be there in the future because they've either closed or moved on or found some other opportunities. And it could be a simple conversation to have them feel that they are appreciated and that you want to continue with them.
Oh, absolutely. Look, and I think that you've just touched on an important point, one which is the landlords. No one is immune from this. And a landlord is a good example, or someone that owns commercial property is a good example. A commercial property owner is only as effective as the tenants that they have. Now, if their tenants all go belly up, then he's left with an empty building. So what's the value of that building? And you know, most people will determine, most valuers will say, well, the value of any commercial property is a percentage or a yield on its income. In other words, on its rental. If the rental is 0, it doesn't matter what the yield is. The answer is the value of the building is 0. So everybody needs to basically have a dialogue about people in their supply chain, and to have a level of understanding of, what can people do. And if people go back to falling on the letter of the law and in the contract, and it says, well, hang on, you signed a lease agreement, and the lease agreement says you're going to pay this amount. If you don't pay it, I'm going to boot you out. Well, that will become quite evident in the marketplace very, very, very quickly. Now, one of the provisions that the government just announced at 5 a.m. this morning was the fact that commercial landlords have to have further notice given to tenants, or tenants have a longer period to debate the issue before they are evicted from a building, as opposed to what was previously in the legislation before. But just on that, one of the things that I want to just briefly mention is, what are the changes coming ahead? Now, I haven't got a crystal ball, but what I do know is that there is going to be a new norm, and I don't know what that new normal is, but what I do know is that things like using media, people working from home, people possibly deciding on when they want to engage with people-to-people contact. The concept of going to a large conference, particularly international conference, is probably a thing of the past, and it's just not going to happen for probably at least 12 months. So there's going to be different ways and means of people communicating, and some will be really effective. Some will be people will learn the technologies, just like you're doing now with this session. And the advantage that has is that, this is on a demand basis. So you can listen to it at the time, you can listen to it after the event. Even after listening to it, you can go back to it and saying, hey, there was something that guy said back then, and what was that? It's important. So that selective and on-demand ability to receive information, I think that will become part of the new norm.
All over the place. I mean, during this time of making plans, right? Because if you haven't got as much work on as you had prior, you got a lot of time to think. And making plans is one of the things that you should be thinking about. Really, is like, is your current business model going to function in a world where this might have a long tail? It's 4 weeks of level 4. Who knows how many weeks of level 3 and level 2 before we get back to no restrictions whatsoever. No crystal ball gazing there, but it's going to be longer than 0, all right?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Like I'm even thinking about, like, I've got a documented sales process that I use. Now am I going to have to go back to that and go, well, actually, is this going to be effective in that environment? Should I be getting the scalpel out and just going, this doesn't apply now. What else could I put in here? Could I be doing things through direct mail more than essentially, email? Because if people are being choked out by this kind of stuff, perhaps I can gain their attention in some other way.
I think that's absolutely relevant. I mean, like I said, just what you did last year, aspects of that will be the same. The end result, you'd hope to be the same, but the manner in which you get there will be fundamentally different. Why? Because the medium is different. People can't, not literally, touch or feel your products anymore. You'll need to present that in some sort of visual manner. You'll need to try and explain to them how your services are different to anyone else's services. But I think one of the things that, and I can speak to this from a New Zealand Australian perspective, because I was talking to one of my Australian counterparts yesterday, one of the most important things that will still be relevant and prevalent for small to medium businesses in New Zealand and Australia is that personal touch. is having that level of understanding, engagement, and important that we're also in the same time zone, that we can support you. So one of the things that people might start thinking about is, look, I need X, and X is going to be delivered to me by through an online medium. So why am I restricting myself to getting that service or that offering from a New Zealand provider, as opposed to somebody based in, I don't know, middle of somewhere else? And I'd say to that person, or my answer to that question is, because we need to support New Zealand businesses. We need to make sure that they understand and have that level of appreciation of what I'm going through and some of the challenges I've got, so they can actually customize and modify their service lines towards what I need. And a lot through this part that we navigate our new norm, a lot of it is that people don't actually know what they need. Why? Because the rules are changing. The government is a classic case, and I don't mean to that in any form of criticism. It's just because this new norm is coming to fruition on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis, and things are changing. And as things change, we need to be dynamic in what we're doing and how we're delivering it. Even now, there are some things that we thought weren't previously possible that are now going to be possible. And so how does that mean?
There was, you mentioned, as we were jumping on prior to this, there's literally been a new government support package released. It's probably timely for you to mention what's in there and how that might impact people's
Sure. So, well, I mentioned some of the earlier government packages, which was the wage subsidy, the business finance guaranteed scheme, and things like that. But what they announced early this morning, or maybe even 20 minutes ago to the public, was a couple of things. One, which was a change to the tax loss continuity rules. But basically what that means is that businesses that had previously made a loss, and if there was a change in shareholding of greater than a third of shareholding, those losses were lost, as in they were non-existent. Whereas what happens now is we've taken a leaf out of the Australian book and saying, if that business is going to continue in the future along the same sort of business line, it's going to be a business line test, the new shareholders going forward can take advantage of those losses. So now, if someone's built up a business and they've got a good product, but they've invested a lot in that product and they've accumulated this, $100,000 worth of losses, that's actually worthwhile, because it means that when the new shareholder puts some money into the business and invests in that business, those losses can be utilized. So the next $100,000 we don't have to pay any tax on. So that's a $33,000 saving, essentially. There's a new scheme which says that, and this is a little bit harder to try and understand, or for me to explain. But it's basically essentially where a company's made a profit in the 2020 year, i.e. the year to March just ended, and is going to make a loss in the 2021 year.
Right.
How do I know that? Well, that's a tricky one. What they can do is bring forward that loss of the 2021 year into the 2020 year and pay either less tax or no tax in the 2020 year. So if you've paid some tax already, like provisional taxpayers do, you essentially could get a refund of your 2020 tax. So that's a bit forward thinking, and it's so forward that I'm struggling to get my head around it. So it's one that tax advisors around the country are probably grappling now and sort of saying, well, how do I prove that I'm going to make a loss in 2021, because the year has just started, we're 15 days in, and we don't know what the rest of the year is going to hold. But it is one that is, it is quite beneficial. And there's the other one too, where the government are going to try and pronounce somehow that commercial landlords can't really flex their muscles too hard and too quickly. But they can't sort of like impose themselves on a contract between the landlord and the tenant. So yeah, just watch the space. I think that's only just been announced. The legislation hasn't even been thought about or drafted, and once the legislation's drafted, then there'll be the interpretation from that legislation.
There's some really interesting things there. So part of this conversation where I like to get to is like, what are the opportunities in the future? So
Sure.
part of what that is that if you're looking at doing some kind of merger or acquisition type activity, that first
Provision,
yeah. It's going to suddenly make that a lot more interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because if somebody's actually not had a fabulous year anyway, and then this is kind of squeezing them tight, then it's going to make it a much better opportunity.
Yeah. Well, look, one of the things that, when there's an event like this, and well, we've never had an event like this, but where then there's been a downturn in the economy on the local level, it's always created opportunities, because opportunities in relation to consolidations. In other words, A and B join together and become individually, they might be weak, but as an AB, as a consolidated entity, they go forward and become something that's quite worthwhile and becomes a leader in the marketplace. It could well be that where A is the weaker party, B is the stronger party, B acquires A. So that acquisition could happen. But I think one of the things that we need to think about is the opportunities going forward, is think a bit about what sort of offerings that the marketplace is in desperate need of or will be in need of going forward, and see if you can place yourself in that market space, whatever that is. I've got a view that it's the businesses that are going to be resilient, that are going to plan for the unexpected and have got the ability to execute really quickly are the ones that are going to succeed in this next stage.
Yeah, and covering off, making sure your business is covered off for more categories of risk than perhaps you'd thought of in the past, right? Because like those 1 in 100 year floods that people experience, and then they come, second one comes 1 decade afterwards, right? It's just because it says 1 in 100 years doesn't mean it can't happen, and it's just a realm of probabilities, right?
Correct.
And because we've not had an experience of this magnitude within our lifetimes, that's why people were not hugely prepared for it. It's very easy when things are going very well to let some of these risk mitigation strategies or planning fall to the side, right?
Yep. And look, I heard just recently that people sort of said, "Well, why plan when you don't know what's going to happen?" That is the reason you should plan. The planning is actually not about what's going to happen. It's so that you understand what the ramifications are of that scenario. So, economists quite often look at, multiple scenarios. What would happen if this happened, or this happened, or this happened, or this happened? And then you understand the consequences. So when you know that something is going to happen, you understand what the ramifications of that are. So planning is really, really important during this uncertain times, not because you know what's going to happen, but so you understand the effect of what could happen.
Yeah. And then you want to drill down into, those, if you're looking at investing more in the future, like what's the underlying investment? Are the clients within that potentially risky because they're exposed in some way?
Yep.
Or are they heavily weighted to one particular sector which has got the opportunity to disappear in an event like this? Okay, so I think we're coming up to half an hour now, and we have had an email question come in. If there's any other questions that people have or they're dealing with right now, now's a good opportunity to type that and put that down to the chat session. And we'll get to that right after this one. So Bianca posted this one in from, I have an import distribution business based in Auckland, employs 10 people. My products are not considered to be an essential service, but I could be back operating under level 3 or hope to. What are the top 5 things I should be doing or thinking about?
Yep. Okay. Well, first of all is conserve cash. So how do I do that? You apply for the wage subsidy, negotiate with the landlord, consider reducing wage costs, because if you're not operating at the moment, you've got no revenue coming in, but you've got costs going out. Talk to the bank and think about that business finance guarantee scheme. So conserve cash. Look at your supply chain. Where do you import goods from? Because you're an importer, and if those markets remain closed, where else can you acquire those goods from, or similar goods? Consider broadening your base of suppliers. Look at your customer base. Are there any businesses which are or have been impaired to the extent that you'll have any bad debts? You know, did you deal with the hospitality sector or the tourism sector? Are you exposed in any of your clients, customers exposed in any of those segments? What part can you play to support them over the next 12 months? This is going to be at least, people should be thinking about in business, this is a 6 to 12 month recovery process. And as I mentioned earlier, you're just part of a chain. You need your customers as much as they need you. And probably the next thing is look at your workforce and make sure that they are effective and as appropriate as they might be. Make sure that the right people are on your bus in the right seats. And I think lastly is that look at your business, not where it's been or where it's going, but this is effectively the new norm. We need to get used to it. We need to understand how to operate under this regime, and it's going to be around for a long time. We don't know what level 3 is. The rules will be, or more rules will be given to us very soon about what you can and can't do under level 3. But I think most importantly for people in business is that you need to be ready for change, and you need to have the courage to make that change now.
Yeah. The sooner you make any actions take effect, the better off you'll be. I mean, having the right people on the right seats. There's nothing. If in any time like a crisis, that's when people's characters tend to show through. Are they going to lay supine and just hope that things are going to get better, or are they going to show that they're with you on your mission to achieve what your business is about? If you don't have like a unified team working with you, you're going to spend a lot of time pulling against people internally, which is, it'd be painful.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in business, and even not in business, in the wider community, have risen to the occasion, though. I mean, you've got people of all ilks. And now I saw in the news last night that publicly stating that thanks to the rubbish collectors, for collecting our rubbish. Because what would our communities be like if we didn't have rubbish collectors collecting the rubbish? Now,
probably like New York in the 70s.
But but it's I think it's that the acknowledgement that everybody is doing their bit. And are willing to make a change, and in order to get us out of this, and I think that's a bloody good bonding, I think. And I think that as I said earlier about supporting local businesses, I'd like people to think that when they go next and have an opportunity to buy something that's New Zealand made, New Zealand grown, or New Zealand created, they choose that option rather than something that's, you know, made from offshore. Because
We literally may have no other choice for a while.
well, and wouldn't that be good, you know, for the New Zealand, for the people in New Zealand business, you know, it's, you know, there's nothing wrong with our produce. There's nothing wrong with our products. Yes, they are slightly more expensive, but there's a reason for that, because we live in this place that we do.
Yeah, I think, you know, it is remarkable. The level of compliance that New Zealanders have shown for the restrictions is probably a great predicator for our nation as a whole coming through this relative to how everybody else is unscathed. You know, our population, you know, like, what is it, 5 deaths? It's like, it's not nothing, but comparatively speaking, it's not 4,000 a day either, which, you know.
We are lucky though, because we're an isolated island, or 2 islands.
Yes.
And we are not densely populated. So
yeah, well,
we are
3,
lucky.
You know, in Stewart Islanders, they exist.
I tend to forget about them, but you're right.
yeah. I mean, you know, maybe we could swing this around. If Australia doesn't get there, you know, they fall over. Maybe we'll take them on as West Island.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I think we've had the Mozzies are over there as our advanced party. So we should probably look at wrapping this up. I don't want to consume any more of your valuable time. It's been awesome. I think you've given us some great things to think about there. It's worth having a look at those, the advice that's, or the new packages which has just come through. I think there was something in there about consultancy services. Did you?
Yep. That's they've provided more support to the EMA and the Canterbury business, what's called the Canterbury Business Association, to access their helpline and their support, and they will be well, the EMA for one is one where they have got they can provide the consultancy services in-house, but they'll also be a conduit to other providers as well. Right. So they're trying to boost up and make sure that businesses, the government this is, aren't alone. You know, they have got avenues where businesses can go to find out what to do and how to do things going forward. Bit of a plug for my firm. We've also got our website, which is bdo.co.nz/COVID-19, and there's a raft of information in there, primarily around what businesses should be thinking about, and obviously the government support packages and tax stuff that you'd expect accountants to have.
Awesome. I love it when the dogs spark up. Sorry about that. No, I think there's a lot of value in that. Any kind of consultant, it's like you don't have Olympic athletes getting to the top simply by going out and going for runs by themselves, right? They're usually part of a peer group team of people who are striving for their personal bests, and lo and behold, they often have a coach, right? So if it is lonely in business when you're the boss and there isn't somebody you necessarily can talk to within your organization, but there are plenty of coaches out there and consultants that you can work with, and there is corporate welfare in that respect. Like you can get grants from, was it Audit, and I'll be interested to see where this thing comes in as well, where you can have somebody to talk to and work with to get to where you want to be or can be in the shortest possible time. So if Jugdis, if any of the viewers on this session or in their recording later on, if they want to come and talk to you, what's the best way to get hold of
LinkedIn, or just go to the bdo.co.nz and look me up, and you can drop me an email.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thank you, Jugdis.
Okay.
There's no other questions, so we'll wrap that up there. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. This will be posted up on social media and into the YouTube channel and we'll post it back into LinkedIn as well. And if there is, oh, right, what do I need to mention? Bianca, who do we have on, what's the next session? Can you jump in and tell us about that?
Yes, we have Zoe Burgess, Digital Marketing Advisor, tomorrow at 11.
Lovely. Awesome. So marketing, you know, there's no good time to turn off in marketing. It's like just asking to hold your breath for this next period, right? So my position is you need to ramp it up, market it up, and start getting more leads in through the door with even greater effort, even though the returns will be lower. But there we go. Thank you all for coming. We're looking forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Daniel.
All right.
Cheers.